Okay, let's just dive right in. Um, have you ever felt that pressure? You know, the world shouting, hustle, 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 and you feel kind of guilty just for, well, taking a break, doing nothing. Yeah, me too. But what if that guilt is misplaced? What if being lazy, quote unquote, is actually smart? Today we're digging into a really interesting book called The Art of Laziness by Rod Judkins and a review that breaks it down.
It's fascinating, actually, because the book just turns our usual ideas about laziness completely upside down. It argues it's not really about inaction at all.
Right.
It's more about an intelligent, maybe even a creative approach to how we do things, life, work, all of it.
So our goal today really is to pull out the key insights from this review. How can slowing down, maybe even procrastinating strategically, and this whole less effort, more thought thing, how could that actually help you find more success and maybe, just maybe, a bit more peace? Let's start with the big one, laziness. It's got such a bad rap, isn't it just...
Well, not working, being unproductive. That's the common view, definitely. But Judkins argues something pretty radical. He suggests that people who seem lazy are often smarter because they're inherently looking for the path of least resistance.
Okay.
Not to avoid work entirely, but to get the most results for the least amount of, like, brute force effort. It really boils down to that smart work over hard work idea. Optimize it, don't just grind.
Optimization. I like that framing. It makes a lot more sense than just being lazy. But, okay, the world seems obsessed with speed. Faster, faster, faster.
Right.
Yet the book says slowing down is a strength? How does that even work? It feels so counterintuitive.
It really does, doesn't it? But think about it like this. When you deliberately slow down, you're not just, chilling out.
Yeah.
You're allowing for what the book calls deliberate thinking.
Deliberate thinking.
Yeah. It gives your brain space to understand things more deeply, make better decisions, and honestly, feel less anxious. Think about breakthroughs. They often happen in quiet moments, right? Not usually when you're frantically multitasking.
That's true. You need that space for ideas to connect.
Exactly. You stop just reacting to everything instantly and actually let things marinate, I guess, process properly.
Okay, processing, not just reacting, I get that. But for someone listening who's just caught in that daily whirlwind, being told constantly faster, do more, what are some small ways, practical steps maybe, that the book hints at? How do you start slowing down without feeling like you're, falling behind everyone else?
Well, the review suggests it doesn't have to be drastic. It could be as simple as deciding to focus on one task instead of juggling three.
Okay.
Or maybe pausing for just, say, 30 seconds before you fire off a reply to that stressful email. Taking a beat before reacting to a problem.
Right.
It's about intentionally building in those tiny pockets of thinking time that the book really champions. Little pauses.
So it's about being intentional with your energy, not just the sheer amount you put out.
Okay.
And this connects to procrastination, which is wild because we're always told procrastination is terrible. But this book calls it an art. This is where it gets really interesting for me. How can procrastination possibly be a good thing?
Well, and this is crucial. The book isn't saying all procrastination is good. It's not about just avoiding everything you don't feel like doing.
Okay.
It distinguishes between avoidance and what it calls deliberate incubation, or artful procrastination.
Deliberate incubation.
Yeah. The idea is that for complex stuff, putting it off strategically lets your subconscious chew on it. Or maybe new information comes to light while you wait. So when you do act, your effort is way more effective.
Like letting dough rise, you said.
Exactly. You can't rush it. The waiting, the procrastination, is part of getting a better result. It's about delaying some things to focus your energy where it counts most right now, making sure your effort isn't just scattered everywhere.
Okay, focusing energy makes sense. But how do you know, for someone listening, how do you tell the difference between strategic delay and just putting stuff off because you don't want to do it? Is there a way to check yourself?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
The review implies it comes down to purpose. Are you delaying intentionally to gather more info, let ideas percolate, or focus on something genuinely more critical? That's strategic.
Okay.
If you're delaying by, like, scrolling endlessly through social media just to avoid the task, that's probably just avoidance.
Got it. Purposeful delay.
And the book uses examples like Newton. He apparently spent ages just thinking, observing, seemingly doing nothing.
The Apple story.
Right? Whether that's totally true or not, the point is those lazy moments of contemplation, not frantic work, led to massive breakthroughs. Or think of Picasso intense bursts of creation, then maybe long periods of just reflecting, letting things simmer. It wasn't idleness for idleness' sake. It was about creating mental space. That's the link to creativity.
So it reframes procrastination not as a weakness, but maybe as a tool for deeper thinking.
Okay.
Now, what about routines? We're always told routines go good. Structure, efficiency?
Yeah, the productivity gurus love routines.
Right. So if smart laziness is about finding easier ways, finding shortcuts, how does breaking routines fit in? Wouldn't that make things less efficient?
It seems like it would, but the book argues routines can become ruts. Comfortable? Sure. But they can blind you to better ways.
Yeah, okay.
Sticking rigidly to the rules, or how it's always been done, can stifle new ideas. The so-called lazy person, Judkins says, is naturally looking for that shortcut, that simpler path.
The path of least resistance again.
Exactly. And that very search for ease is often what leads to innovation, because they're not bound by the standard procedure. It's like always driving the same way to work. You might never find that quicker, nicer route through the park unless you break the routine.
Exploring the park route. I like that metaphor.
Yeah, the book kind of encourages being that park explorer, even if it feels a bit lazy initially.
So let's bring this home. For you listening right now, what does all this actually mean? How does this apply to your day-to-day beyond just interesting ideas?
Well, I think if you're someone who feels constantly drained, just overwhelmed by the sheer amount of activity demanded of you, or maybe you're just looking for a different way, something that offers both, peace and success. This book is super relevant.
Okay.
It really argues that this smart laziness can boost your creativity, sure, but also genuinely offer a more sustainable, maybe more fulfilling path forward.
Yeah.
It's a direct challenge to that always be busy culture.
Right.
Suggesting real productivity comes from being thoughtful about where your energy goes, not just churning out activity, finding that effortless action sweet spot.
Effortless action. And you mentioned Rod Judkins' writing makes these potentially weird ideas quite accessible. What's the style like?
Yeah, the review really praises the style. It's described as easy to read, entertaining, but still really thought-provoking, not dry at all.
Good.
Apparently it's packed with examples, anecdotes, stuff that makes you stop and think. And each chapter works like a little story with its own lesson. So it feels more like a series of engaging conversations than a heavy textbook.
Nice. Okay, but let's be real. This idea of artful laziness, it's not going to click with everyone immediately. What are some of the criticisms or potential downsides the review points out for the skeptics listening?
Fair point.
Yeah.
The review does mention a few things. One is simply perception. Some people might just hear laziness and immediately think it's promoting, well, being irresponsible or doing nothing. A misinterpretation of the title, maybe.
Yeah, easy mistake to make.
Also, for people really embedded in that fast-paced hustle environment, these ideas might feel uncomfortable or just completely counter to everything they believe about hard work being the only way.
Yeah, I can see that.
And finally, it's noted that the book offers more of a mindset shift, a new philosophy, rather than like a 7-step formula for being strategically lazy.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a very prescriptive step-by-step guide, this might feel a bit less practical. It's more about changing how you think about effort and results.
Embracing the philosophy, not just checking boxes. Got it. Wow, this deep dive really does flip the script, doesn't it? On productivity, success, how we value our time and energy.
Absolutely. And connecting it to the bigger picture, it's really not about encouraging people to do nothing. It's about fostering a much deeper awareness, a consciousness about how we use our energy, our attention. It's a powerful challenge to that always on, always active default mode. It argues that real strength, real breakthroughs often come from those moments of pause, of strategic thought.
Yeah. The book seems to be saying, make friends with laziness. Understand that pausing, thinking, reflecting, that can be your secret weapon. And doing less visible work doesn't mean you're useless.
Exactly.
True success, according to Judkins, is about living smartly, working smartly, not just constantly.
Which leaves us with a pretty important question for you, the listener.
Yeah.
In this world that just won't stop glorifying busyness, what could you actually gain by deliberately carving out moments for smart laziness? How might that thoughtful pause, that strategic delay you've been avoiding, actually lead to your next big insight? Not just at work, but, in life generally.
Something to definitely think about. We hope this discussion encourages you to maybe look at rest, thought, and even inaction a little differently. Until next time, stay curious. And maybe, just maybe, be a little smarter about how you're lazy.